Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to the members of the Pasteur Network community, and welcome to this new edition of the Pasteur Network monthly seminar. Thank you very much for joining us today. As always, we will begin with our speaker's presentation, followed by a Q&A session, who will be moderated by Rebecca Grace, Executive Director of the Pasteur Network. Feel free to share your questions in the chat at any time or raise them directly during the Q&A. To ensure a smooth experience for everyone, please keep your microphone and camera switched off during the talk. The seminar is recorded and will be soon available on the Pasteur Network YouTube channel. Today, we are happy to take you to the Institut Pasteur in Paris to talk about Pasteur 2030 scientific strategy. It's our honor to welcome our speaker, Professor Yasmine Belkad, President of the Institut Pasteur in Paris. Professor Belkad is the President of the Institut Pasteur in Paris and the head of Meta-Organism Laboratory of the Institut Pasteur. She obtained her master in biochemistry at the University of Science and Technology Houari Boumediene in Algiers, in Algeria, and her PhD from the Institut Pasteur. Following a postdoctoral fellowship at the National Institute of Health on immune regulation during infection, she started her research program at the Children's Hospital Research Foundation in Cincinnati. In 2005, she joined the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, where she served as Department Chair of the Laboratory of Host Immunity and Microbiome, Director of the Trent's NIH Center for Human Immunology, and founder and Director of the NIH Microbiome Program prior to joining the Institut Pasteur in 2024. Her work explores fundamental mechanisms that regulate tissues homeostasis and host immune responses, and uncovered key roles for the microbiota and dietary factors in the control of immunity and protection to pathogens. It also explores the role of the immune system and organismal remodeling and the impact of infections on the mother-child diet. Professor Belkad is also a member of the National Academy of Science, the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, the National Academy of Medicine, the French Academy of Science, Fellow of the Royal Society, and she is the recipient of numerous awards, including the Lurie Prize in Biomedical Sciences, the Emil von Behring Prize, the Sanofi Institut Pasteur Award, the Robert Koch Award, and the AAI Excellence in Mentoring Award. But before giving the floor to Yasmine Belkad, I would like to say a few words about our platform, PinLink, as you can see on my shared screen. This is the platform that we've created 4 months ago, and we already have 950 people, activated users, and some of you here are already registered on this platform, and we are really, really happy with that. Remember that this platform is absolutely open to everyone in the network, researchers, students, and support staff, and it's completely free of charge. So we're really, really pushing you to register on PinLink, find new contacts, establish collaboration. You never know. You never know what you can find on PinLink. So please try. It will take you only 3 minutes. Okay, so I will stop sharing my screen. And I'll give the floor to Professor Belkad. Thank you very much for being here. And Yasmine, the floor is yours.
So thank you very much, Hicham. It's really a great pleasure for me to be here.
I think you're muted, Yasmine.
Oh,
we can't hear you.
Oh, that's a problem.
No, we can hear you.
Okay, maybe it's me.
We can hear.
Oh,
we can hear you.
It's just Hicham.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm very happy to be here with you today virtually, unfortunately, and so happy to be able to reach out to so many friends, colleagues across the Pasteur Network. So today, first, I'm not going to start at part 4. I just have to start with the introduction. I'm going to just discuss with you really Pasteur strategy about the next few years, and how also, and I hope this is going to be the object of the discussion, how what we're doing and what we're already doing together, because I know that so many collaboration exists between so many of us collectively. How do we can actually reinforce this collaboration? This is really one of the objects of this discussion today. So I'm going to go very briefly about the history of Pasteur Institute, but nonetheless, I think for all of us, it's kind of a very interesting journey, a collective and complex journey, but a journey that we are all together in, that started 140 years ago with the development of Pasteur Institute, which from the inception had very much this idea of, today we speak a lot about One Health, but the reality, I think this was very much invented, I think, within Pasteur Institute in terms of a science that was very much directed to impact associated with infectious disease of animals, plants, food, and so forth. And also this idea of having an environment that was self-sustainable via the discovery of product that could become patented and feed into the ecosystem. So today, Pasteur Institute remains a private foundation, an independent institute that receives some funding from the government, but is actually dominantly private. From the get-go, the Institut Pasteur was actually generated with this ambition to actually fight infectious disease worldwide. And this is actually why so many institutes were actually created. The first one, of course, in Vietnam, that I had the great pleasure to actually visit this year. So as many of you know, this is really an institution that really has one of its dominant aspects is really research, a lot of mechanistic research, although this is not the only one. And I know that many other research actually are existing in Pasteur, translational research, development of diagnostic, vaccine, and so forth. But one of the dominant energy that really remain within Pasteur Institute tend to be around fundamental research associated with mechanisms of disease, with a very large dominant of the research done in Pasteur around host microbe interaction, microbiology, and infectious disease. So, one of the really, although of course Pasteur Institute has many different fields of research, which is one of the things that characterize the institution, we have within the campus people that work in physics, people that work in mathematics, chemists, immunologists, microbiologists. The dominant, as I mentioned, energy of what happened within Pasteur Institute tend to actually really be around microbiology. And this is really what remains our strength. Today, we have expertise over 161 pathogens. There is 142 units, which is independent group of researchers in Pasteur Institute, 32 platforms, and 13 departments. And I know that actually a lot of exchanges have happened over the years, especially within the platform, technological platform, to actually develop trainings across the network. So there is of course many other aspects of research in Pasteur, ranging from cancer, neurodegenerative disease, metabolic disease, and mental illness, and many others. But really, I'm insisting on the fact that one of the dominant strengths remain within the realm of infectious disease and microbiology. So Pasteur, from the beginning, was really designed to be a teaching institution. And that really remains very much one of our core value and the core energy that is really a place within this function. Institut Pasteur contributes a lot of its private fund, its own fund, to contribute to education, both locally and internationally. And this is really one of the things that we are the most proud of. And I know one of the things that had been one of the links between many of the institutes that are actually hopefully connected today. So we have over 700 young scientists that have actually been welcome to do their master degree in Pasteur. Recently, we have in the campus right now almost 400 PhD students. We have a lot of seminars that are given through webinars, and I'm sure that a lot of them are listed within the PN link. I'm making a little commercial for the wonderful platform that Hisham actually has put together. There is 45 courses that are of different expertise, and we're actually constantly developing new courses that really to adapt to the demand. For example, we have actually last year, Monica has actually put together a course on the mother-child dyad, in which I had the privilege to be able to teach, allowing me to maintain some of this activity I love so much. But just to tell you that we're constantly adapting new course to new demand or actually new expertise that is required. We have actually 122 Pasteur Network professionals and students that have been trained within the campus since 2019. So one of the functions of the Pasteur Institute in those complex times that we're all living, some of you are even more impacted than others based on actually what has happened, especially in the US in terms of the cessation of certain programs. We spent a lot of energy recently to actually try to advocate and fight for the importance of biological research, but also a research that is really not only serving the few, but really is at the service of all. And this is really one of the roles that Pasteur Institute has, is also to communicate about the importance of research and to make sure then research remains a value for all societies. So today, this was really the 5 minutes introduction of the complexity of this institution. And I have to say, I've been here for 2 years and I'm still discovering the complexity of the place. There is an enormous amount of energy and activity happening in campus. So when I first arrived, we discussed with a lot of scientists. I met also directors from the Pasteur Network, some of my colleagues, and collectively, this numerous discussion really led to what has become the strategic plan of Pasteur Institute. That is not a plan that is actually that has for aim to divide, but in the contrary, to really regroup the strength of the institute into 4 pillars that I'm going to describe with you. And I think you're going to realize that a lot of them resonate with the pillars and the strategic plan of the Pasteur Network. So the first priority, and I'm going to, of course, explain to you a bit more in details how each of them are actually developing and what are really the goal of each of them. The first one, which is really very much built aligned with the priority of what Pasteur Institute had for a long time and expertise, is around infectious disease and also, of course, including the fast rise of antimicrobial resistance, something that many of you are working on. The second one is actually associated with environmental changes and actually how they have an impact on human health and in particular infectious disease. The third axis is something that we refer as the origin of disease. It's a bit of a broad term, but what we mean by that is we know that actually complex disorders, inflammatory disorders, metabolic disorders do not come from simple injury. They come often from multiple complex hits. It could be an infection. It could be actually a malnutrition combined with infection. It could be actually exposure to chemicals. And so to understand the origin of complex disorders, we need to work differently and actually to join forces between fields. And I'm going to explain in more detail what I mean. The fourth priority came actually from the general realization that what was very, very important in life, of course, was the beginning of life, which is actually the mother, the child. And of course, what was very fragile was the end of life. And we realized in this extremely vulnerable stage of life are in fact less understood than others and less integrated in the way we actually think about the biology, infectious disease, vaccine responses. So this axis really focused very much on very early in life, including mother and women health, on the mother and child health, and of course in the elderly. So how do we actually make this work? These are really programs that are really here to really regroup all the diversity of the function that happen in Pasteur across the department. And this actually is led by 2 remarkable scientists, Aude Bernheim and Oliver Schwartz, that are one virologist, an immunologist, and Aude Bernheim that is really also an extraordinary bacteriologist that is discovering new mechanisms of defense of bacteria. And what they do together is they're helping us animate this strategy, this first aim, which is really to try to regroup the strengths of Pasteur Institute, to try to understand how we can actually develop new incentive programs, what kind of area we need to actually develop more, what kind of new institute we need to bring within this discussion. And they also have at their disposal a little bit of resource that allows to actually develop new projects to actually encourage people to actually work across departments. So this actually works very well and is really also has a very big role in communication. Both Aude and Olivier are passionate about communication of science and have also organized, vulgarization conferences around the theme of infectious disease, something that is very, very important. As you know, all we work on infectious disease and other, but we also need to make sure the public and the deciders understand why and how we are doing our science. So the second one is actually what we refer as environmental changes, and in particular, what happened in the context of infectious disease. And this actually regroups few themes. One of them is really being linked to the evolution of pathogens and pandemic preparedness, and I'm going to come back to this point later. And the second one that is really a very strong area of research in Pasteur is really vector-borne disease. And I will come back to this point because I really think this area is an extraordinary point of synergy between all our institutes. As you know, vector-borne disease remain a problem worldwide, And they also are a problem that is actually also changing in terms of its geography, in terms of its evolution, knowing that actually deforestation, change in climate have actually moved population of animals, but also of vectors, transforming really the world in a kind of a more chaotic environment for infectious disease. And this question really has to actually be tackled. Vector-borne disease and medical entomology is a field of research that, in fact, is not very dominant anymore in the world, yet we need it more than ever. So what we have decided to do, and I will come back to this point, is to put a lot of energy in reinforcing these structures, hiring scientists, training the next generation of scientists that will work on that. And I think this is an extraordinary point of intersection between all our campus. And I will again come back to this, that is actually led by Annabella Fayou, that many of you do know, and Philippe Basta. So this is just to highlight point that many of you know more than we do, is the importance of vector-borne disease. Remembering that 17% of all infectious disease are actually vector-borne, and this is likely to actually go higher with actually the increased transmission of viruses from ticks and others. We know that 80% of the population is at risk, at least, of vector-borne disease. And I'm sure that this is actually an underestimation, the number of deaths per year caused by vector-borne disease. So this is really an extremely important theme that we need to actually not only maintain, but also reinforce. The third axis is actually led by Gérard Héberle, who has actually developed an approach where he actually has a referent from the program in every single department of Pasteur. So it's a very collaborative initiative that is here really to regroup, as I mentioned before, our strengths around elements that will allow us to understand how a disease develops and what are really the factors upstream that will dysregulate tissue. I'm going to give you an example. In the context of COVID-19, many of you do know that infection had actually long-term consequences. In fact, COVID-19 is far from being, this virus is far from being the only one doing that. Most infections have consequences and long-term consequences on human health. And they can actually, in many circumstances, be the element that trigger the collapse of the tissue and will lead to other inflammatory or degenerative disorders. So this is an example to show you how something that may not be related, but causal, can actually have long-term consequences. And there is really an acceleration, as we know, of metabolic disorders in the world, of cancer in young individuals, of inflammatory disorders more generally. So for us to try to position ourselves in a situation where we can become able to actually give a recommendation on prevention, we need to understand mechanisms that lead to the collapse of those tissues. And this is really a very transdisciplinary approach where people from neuroscience, immunology, modelization, people that work on AI, on imaging, work together to really try to understand the fragility and the element that could actually trigger disease based on actually injuries caused by inflammation, infection, or other factors. The last axis is also an axis that I think is likely to have a lot of potential connection with the Pasteur Network. And this is the axis, as I mentioned before, that is really related to this early in life, and especially mother and child diet and the senescence. And this is really led and very much helped very much by Philippe Sansonetti, that really has played a really great role in helping animating this program, and Akumano. Derek Duffy, that he really is a human immunologist that's doing a lot of work on the diversity of immune response in human, and has a lot of program on women health and human immunology in particular. And Tira Rosso, that is actually coordinating the elderly and the senescence immunology. So this is a very, very large form of pillar that include, of course, trying to understand development, trying to understand fertility, trying to develop actually model to understand how inflammation or alteration in nutrition can have long-term impact on the child. There's a program on lactation. There's a larger program on microbiome and early life and many others. And again, this is a program that I think has a huge amount of potential for communication and collaboration that already exists in the Pasteur Network, but can be really likely reinforced through this pillar. So we at Pasteur very much are extremely enthusiastic about making sure that we're maintaining and we're renewing our pool of young scientists that will actually become the leaders of the field. And we have this year recruited 4 new G5. Alors, the G5 is a very Pasteurian term that means basically tenure track or young scientists that will be given resources to start the program independently and create their own laboratory. Spiros is a young scientist that is working on vaccine design and the evolution of viruses, that is combining AI and will actually play a really big role in helping us developing new antigen design for vaccine. Morgan Thion is a young scientist working on neuroimmunology and neurodevelopment, trying to understand how events that happen during pregnancy can actually influence brain development. Nader Yatim is a human immunologist that is doing a lot of work in the context of myeloid cells and aging, and he's actually an MD PhD that will actually come back to France. He did actually his PhD at Pasteur Institute. And Sarah Meckling, that is a young, extraordinary medical entomologist or entomologist working on vector-virus interaction. That is actually, and I'm going to come back to this point later, helping us very much really define the vision of Pasteur Institute on vector-borne disease. So I really hope that over the next few years, through maybe the Spark program or others, you will have the opportunity to engage these remarkable scientists in collaborative projects. And I'm going to make sure that they can actually have the opportunity to present the program to all of you in one of the meetings of the Pasteur Network. So a few elements that are actually developing recently that could be of particular interest and I hope subject of discussion is the vector-borne disease initiative in Pasteur that has for ambition to not be an initiative that is actually localized only in Paris and in 15th arrondissement of Paris. Vector-borne disease is a global problem that is actually affecting many countries. Many of the institutes and many of the laboratories of the Pasteur Network work on vector-borne disease. This disease affects especially countries in which some of the laboratories are actually located. So the ambition is the following one. We want first to create a federation of our energy within the campus, but making sure that we actually federate our energy within the Pasteur Network, including the Ultramarin, but other institutes. And we want to be certain that this new infrastructure that we're building, that will have state-of-the-art facilities, 3P3 levels that will allow to really explore emerging disease and vector-borne disease in very high level of containment, could not only be a place of research, but be a place of collaboration, where we can actually welcome scientists coming from across the world that could really have access to those infrastructure that will be hard to actually have in other places. And to have actually laboratory that could actually be maybe also co-led between scientists from across the world. So we have a lot of ambition for these new infrastructures to really be a catalyst of a new vision of how we can do science and how we can actually collaborate and how we can really train the next generation of scientists and also create resources that could actually be able to people to come to actually be able to do things that may not be able to do. And so again, I'm extremely excited to continue to discuss with you. This building will actually be finished in 2028, which is not that long ago. And we're going to be able to actually build those bridges during the meantime. I think we're going to try to have some of our incentive program from the Pasteur to try to reinforce the bridge between vector-borne disease research and the different campus as to prepare for this facility. And I will come back to you later when this is actually finalized. But again, I'm really excited about what is happening there and how we can really utilize it collectively to reinforce well-needed collaboration and training. So that's basically what I was saying. There are extraordinary strengths in vector-borne disease within the Pasteur Network. It's probably an unmatched potential of collaboration, knowledge, and expertise that are very rare in the world. So I think collectively, as a whole, we are extremely strong on vector-borne disease. And what we need to do is to make sure that we put all our strengths together and making sure that we actually make a difference in this extremely important field that is not only important for the prevention of infection, but understanding of the physiopathology, transmission, vector control, and many, many other aspects that are absolutely vital. So another big program that is developing in Pasteur Institute is a center of vaccination and in particular, the one that has actually been developed recently in partnership with Europe. So as you know, HERA is a program in Europe that is devoted to actually all this element of preparedness. And we have been lucky within Pasteur Institute to be the French representative of the vaccine program within this consortium that allows Pasteur Institute to be really in charge of the pillar that is going to be the preclinical, but also we are also involved in antigen design and many others. I'm very happy to say that some of the first vaccine that we're going to have is the one, of course, in the realm of this program will be around shigellosis, which, as many of you may have heard, that is moving forward, and I think we're very excited to see that moving forward. There is also a project of chikungunya and many others, and I'm really more than happy to make sure that all the activity that happen on vaccinology are more coordinated with what the really strong effort that happen in the network, and maybe having really devoted groups of collaboration and discussion around this thematic. So again, more than happy to put people in touch if they're interested to hear more about this program with Guillemette and others that are leading the program, and to have a specific session devoted to vaccine that maybe we can do as a team. Another program that I think is important and could potentially something that we should discuss with some of you to see if we can really include scientists from the Pasteur Network. But we have a strong partnership with EMBL, in which we have joint call and we have collaboration. There's also training of new technology. And this really is actually a really remarkable opportunity to allow us to develop new technology in collaboration with others, to share students, and could actually be an environment where we could, in the realm of infectious disease, because EMBL wanted to increase infectious disease research, connect more with the Pasteur Network. We have recently formalize the existence of a microbiome center that is led by Benoît Chassin. We do a lot of research on microbiome. Many of you do research on microbiome, but we had decided that we needed to do something a bit more structured. And that could also be another interesting point of interaction with members of the Pasteur Network, because the idea is to federate resources, federate technology, federate protocol, federate teaching that could really be something we can share as a community, knowing that actually many of you do research on microbiome associated with AMR or actually tracking a microbiome in various cohorts. So I think it may be really, really interesting to make sure that we create a working group around that and to see how we can actually all together share our expertise and in particular share the bioinformatic pipeline and many others. So I really hope that this is going to be the object of more collaboration. So we also have existence of a pandemic Pasteur Pandemic Preparedness Initiative that was led before by Christophe Denfer, that has been that is now led by Arnaud Fontanet. That is, of course, a work that has numerous dimensions. One of them is, of course, to have a faster response, develop epidemic intelligence, increase our capacity to develop biomedical countermeasure. And for example, a small example of concrete connection that has happened with the Pasteur Network recently was through the SNF project that has actually joined 6 Pasteur institutes around the common goal. And really, we all know preparedness is actually being in connection, being in coordination, and have continuous collaboration and trust that could allow us to activate this energy when needed. So more than happy to once again engage and to make sure that people that really want to know what is happening within Paris and how to coordinate better with the other activities, knowing that a lot of them are already happening, happy to actually organize a specific session for that. The other program that we're developing, it's something that may be of interest, and in particular some of the young scientists that may be here today, is a Pasteur AI initiative. We in Pasteur Institute is the institute, at least in France, that has integrated the most AI in biomedical research. So we have quite a lot of expertise that are not very visible, but actually very strong in many different aspects. And we are now in the process of putting all this energy and making it more visible, but also more accessible to collaboration and to training. We're also putting in place new training in AI that could become also a point of intersection with the Pasteur Network by sharing our training course and then maybe creating a community. For example, one of the projects that is extremely exciting, that is led by Aude Bernheim, David Picard, Ryan Chiki, Laurent Issue, and Grégory Pat, is a new project that is to develop a virtual pathogen. That may sound a bit esoteric for the person that is more like me, hardcore experimental biologist. But it's really a brilliant concept, which is in the time of AI, how to utilize virtual and to be able to create a virtual pathogen, the extraordinary capacity it could have to actually allow us to predict behavior, emergence of AMR, evolution, or drug target. So this is, of course, very ambitious, very complex. We're actually partnering with actually other schools of research and engineers and computational scientists and many others. It's going to be a long and complex project, but I think this has an extraordinary potential that could also become a point of intersection with, I know, so many of the brilliant young scientists within the network that may be interested in those approaches. So here I've mentioned many of the things that already exist. In fact, all what we do in Pasteur is connected and has been connected with the Pasteur Network. Here, this is actually more a part of what I'm going to just make it more formal on what already exists. But as I have mentioned before, everything that we have done and we do is already in connection. So I just wanted to highlight things that many of you know already, is the fact that we have, first, I'm not going to remind you that Pasteur Network is a unique, absolutely unique consortium and initiative. I think I want to take really this opportunity to say that Rebecca is a formidable leader, and she has really done something truly remarkable with her team. And the energy that is put there, and I remember this year, especially going to Vietnam and seeing the extraordinary energy. I mean, this was, I think, magnificent to see 40 scientists coming from around the planet, sharing their science. So the Pasteur Network is an unmatched, and there's absolutely nothing comparable in the world. The fact that we are around the table, that we're actually able to share from many different circumstances, world, different settings, the fact that we are able to actually be around, joined by a desire to be together, joined by a desire to train scientists, joined by a desire to collaborate, is in the world of today, there is nothing comparable, and this is extremely important. So we are very proud in Pasteur Paris to be part of the Pasteur Network. So I'm just going to highlight some of the ongoing projects that exist, but the goal really is to make sure that we have so many more. Durable, that many of you are involved. We have, of course, the course, the Pasteur Network course, the AfroScreen, the AfriBiota, many others. Some of them are actually smaller, some of them are bilaterals. But as I mentioned before, the goal really of the next few years is to make sure that we actually creating more of those opportunities to work together, to actually grow together, and importantly, that we grow the next generation of scientists together. An example of a project that is involving many of you is, of course, for example, the Plasmodium vivax serological rapid diagnostic test that is coordinated within Paris by Marco White, but also that involved many of you in Dakar, in Ethiopia, and also in Madagascar. A really exciting project that I'm really looking forward to just be able to discuss with you more. This is actually a very important project because it's multidisciplinary. What did I do? Yes, of course. Multidisciplinary, the goal is to develop a rapid point of care of serological test, method, validation, and impact. Again, a really important project. I just realized that one thing that I had forgotten to say when I was talking about all the work and all the internal work is also how much also the international department of Pasteur has contributed to, of course, to facilitate some of those collaborations. I thank them very much for the work they have done, and especially in the coordination of some of the large projects that I have mentioned. So I just wanted to say some of the new tools, we're trying to be as creative as possible within the constraint and the world of today in resources. But one thing that we have realized, and this came also from discussion we had with Rebecca, we need to invest in the future. I think the existence of the network comes from the fact that many of the scientists had links and know each other and had developed relationship. But we need to make sure that these networks remain a reality in the coming generation. I think that's why the Pasteur Network meeting this year with actually highlighting these new links and this new generation that arrive is so important. So in line with that, what we have done with Rebecca is created a incentive program and actually grants that are devoted to actually making sure that the next generation of young scientists develop collaboration and develop this relation of trust that will actually be so fundamental to sustain and to redefine and reinvent the Pasteur Network, because every relation has to be constantly redefined and evolved. So I think this we had the first call last year, and another one is actually, I think, has been sent today. And I'm really, really excited to make sure that we soon have meetings in which all these beautiful projects are going to be presented, allowing us to really just create a community of young scientists beyond those grants that can actually meet and continue this relationship and actually keep developing grants. Just an example of some of the grants that had actually been awarded this year. So many of you can recognize that it was 18 projects that was applied, 4 awardees, with 8 institutes from the Pasteur Network, including 4 LMIC. And I just wanted to, since I have the opportunity to discuss with you, to explain a bit more the way by which this works. There is 2 tracks. One track that is financed by the Pasteur Network. And of course, every member of the Pasteur Network can actually participate. And another track that is founded by Paris, Institut Pasteur Paris. And in this case, what we had done is we had taken the will to make sure that our campus didn't lose connection with the Pasteur Network. So it needs to involve one scientist from the Pasteur Paris and someone from the Pasteur Network. And this year, because of course funds were not limited, we had actually put in priority countries in which there was resources that were limited. Because we consider that our colleagues that are in higher income countries could maybe contribute, and in this case, we can do things in which that will be more equal. But we wanted to make sure that those projects could go, in particular, to part of the world when actually funding could be more challenging. So this was not actually to exclude other countries. The goal was really very much to actually making sure that when we have funds, we make sure that they go in which they are the most needed, knowing that actually the track from the Pasteur Network is open to everybody. Okay, just to tell you that this is open and I'm extremely excited to continue the work. We're going to try to be creative and creating other platforms. It will be really wonderful. This was also linked to actually meetings that we organize once a year to make sure that all these projects are shared, knowing that this actually could, I'm sure, going to lead to many, many more funding opportunities. So on this, I think I have talked too much already, and I just wanted to make sure that I had time to discuss with you, just to tell you that I'm so sorry it's not in person. So sorry that I can actually have, and I'm sure we're going to have other opportunity. Again, great joy for me to be part of the Pasteur Network. It's a privilege. I always say that. Then I came back to Pasteur Paris because of the Pasteur Network, because I believe in the mission. I believe in actually the trust and the relationship we can have. I believe that today this is the only way to actually be relevant. So I'm extremely excited to continue this work, to continue to just maintain this relationship, work at this relationship. We all know relationship, how we have to work at it, and making sure that we work as a team. And we remember one thing, we are here for the future. We are here to make sure that what we do today is lasting, that the next generation is able to actually take the lead, and we can actually just make sure that all this important network is actually just developing. And as we have seen over the last few years, the network now is visible. It's actually now in international meetings. People are talking about it. It's going to have a space and be represented at the Gates Foundation. It's becoming an actor of the dialogue internationally. And that's what was needed. Okay.
Well, that's great. So first of all, I want to thank Yasmin for taking the time to do this. It's really important, and your kind words and true words definitely reflect what we're all trying to do collectively. So in terms of questions, I'm sure Yasmin is more than happy to take questions, certainly those focused on the strategic plan of Pasteur 2030. So if you have any, feel free to raise your hand or put them in the chat. Also, if it's too much and there's too many people and you don't want to ask a question, don't worry about it. You can also send it later or send it to Hisham or myself, and we can make sure that it gets to the right people. So does anybody have a specific question on Pasteur 2030? Too intimidating?
I think Milena from Stefan Envelope raised her hand.
Milena, please.
I raised it by mistake. I'm sorry.
No, sorry. That you have to ask a question. I mean, there's no mistake, okay?
But I really appreciate your kind words for the Pasteur Network, and I agree that that's one of the. It's an incredible opportunity to have so many institutes collaborating on so many different topics, and I look forward for it to develop even further and to integrate researchers even more. So thank you for this presentation, and I'm sorry that I raised my hand by mistake, but really thank you, and then welcome to Institut Pasteur and the Pasteur Network as a new director.
As a side note, Milena, I'll talk for you. Yasmin, Milena is a very good researcher at Stefan Engeloff, and she is also very highly interested in immunology.
Oh.
Sliman, are you online? I was going to say, you want me to read your question? In fact, Sliman's question is about modeling and what is in the fact that it's gaining importance over time. And is there any type of approach or emphasis or strategic vision to strengthen it?
What a good question. It looks like I have placed the question. So yes, absolutely. So you're absolutely correct. Modeling is increasingly important, and actually that's one of the area we're investing a lot. We recruiting Hendrik, which I'm blanking on his name, Hendrik, that many of you are working with. He has a last name, I'm sure I'm going to remember at one point. But we're reinforcing that. This is one of the areas where Pasteur actually does very well, but really, I think one of the areas where we could really very much train, collaborate more. I mean, there is a lot of already collaboration, I think, with many of you, but you're absolutely correct, and this is something we're investing a lot, and maybe an interesting area to discuss in terms of like incentive programs or trainings, or is it one area where we actually join forces specifically? In fact, one of the discussions we could have with the Pasteur Network is, do we want collectively to say, for example, for the Spark or others, do we want collectively to say, well, there is some area, why don't we actually just kind of like put a bit of strength collectively? At the moment, we don't do that. But we could decide, then we identify 2 or 3 areas and we reinforce it. So maybe I'm putting it out there as a discussion for you guys, but frankly, feel free to just say we should really just invest in this area that is really the most important today that we want collectively. And I'm sure Rebecca and I will just really create subset of those devoted to that.
Absolutely. And Sliman, I'll speak for you also. It's very important, as you and Amira have done in Tunisia, to ensure that modeling is open to both men and women. And that's certainly something that we could promote as well.
Yep.
Marco?
Yes, hello, Yasmin. Thank you very much. I really appreciated seeing how you set out these priorities, the 4 priorities, and it's interesting, to see every 5 years or so, everybody redoes their priorities, and it tends to have a ripple effect. The names, the words that we use. For instance, it was very much AMR, vector-borne diseases, 5 years ago. We maintain these priorities, and I saw you've set them. You've just brought them at a higher level, in a sense, observing, calling it environment and climate impacts, etc. So, and I think that's very well chosen. It's going to ripple again across institutes all over the world. So I'm wondering, have you been looking at what's the approaches or the priorities named in other institutes in Europe, like the major institutions or the Max Plancks, for instance? Are you seeing, while being the trailblazer, are you also seeing similar trends?
So it's interesting, like one thing that I'm going to tell you that is interesting is when we set up those priority and we announced them, I had a friend from the US that said, oh, it looks like your priority are the opposite of what Trump is attacking. So so the rippling effect, I think there are not only, if you think at EMBL, for example, recently they have incorporated way more infectious disease that was not at all in their priority. I think women's health is starting to take tractions and emerging more. For example, we see that in Wellcome Trust and others. The mother and child diet starting to emerge. But yeah, I think there is a resonance. I mean, I think it seems that actually we're starting to see AMR is very much pushed in UK, for example. So, and as you know, UK now is coming back within the Europe, at least ERC framework, which may be interesting for many of you guys to think about creating joint grants. So yeah, I think there is definitely a rippling effect. And I like your image of rippling effect, because I think we need to all remember what is our strength and build on it. And I think that was really the ambition of the plan. Of course, people can do things that are very diverse. And we all know that, especially in basic science, things that can come completely off field. Yet we need to build on strengths. And I think 80% of people working on infectious disease microbiology, that needs to become really put very high in our identity and in our priority. Yeah, and we need also to maintain some degree of continuity, because it's terrible if you arrive and you reinvent completely the definition of an institute. You're creating also a chaos that is not conducive to actually what is needed. In science, we have to go for long-term investment, and recruitment that are strategic and so forth. So yeah, thank you for your kind words, but yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, just to add it, because I think it's as a network, you guys have this ability to come together with this, and so it actually does influence people outside. You know, when we look towards the network to help set the priorities in our institutions in Singapore, and I know many others do. So you guys have this ability, and it's nice to see that you're coming together.
But if you look at the priority of the network, I was saying there is a lot of resonance on vector-borne disease, on actually mother and child diet. So in fact, if you really look at a lot of the keywords used in our strategic plan, there's a lot of resonance with what had been said before by the Pasteur Network in terms of actually vaccination, developing of so many of the things that, and I think there's probably almost like an 80% overlap.
Absolutely. Natalia?
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you.
Wait, we have two. We have a Natalie and Natalia.
Sorry.
Hold on one second, Natalie. We'll let Natalia go first. Yeah.
Sorry. Hi. So thank you very much for the presentation. I really love that the Pasteur Network is really gaining more of a spotlight. So I work in the Bioinformatics and Biostatistics Hub, and I have had the opportunity over the last 8 years to actually participate in different trainings in the Pasteur Network. And I'm really happy that you mentioned the uniqueness of the Pasteur Network as an unmatched environment. And I humbly want to say that the hub is also a very unmatched environment for bioinformatics as well, because around Europe and in general, because we are such a big platform, we're over 70 bioinformaticians, as you well know, with a lot of expertise, not only in bioinformatics, but also in data science. And we are in a very privileged position because we have a very interactive communication with the platforms where the data are actually being produced as we speak. So we have, battle-tested pipelines that we are willing to share with our fellow scientists from the Pasteur Network, and we have already done certain courses in which we do that. And I just want to reiterate our interest in keeping doing this in a more, let's say, formal way, that just anecdotal courses here and there. We won one of the Pasteur Network fundings last year to prepare a course in Tunisia, which was very well received. And we actually made a lot of things with the little money that we got. I mean, in the sense of the investment of money and the reach of the project. And I think I just want to make sure that I can communicate with the good people so that we can actually create a more federated way of teaching bioinformatics in the Pasteur Network and sharing our expertise, and of course also our experience, which is 10 years now into research. So it's a good dialogue that I want to keep on doing, and also to actually have win-win situations in which we actually also bring people from the network here, as we had done in the past. So they bring their own data, they work on their own data, and it's really something that also gives us food for thought, because we get exposed to other problematics, and it's a great environment for really growing.
Natalia,
Thanks.
I really thank you very much, very, very much for what you said. And I'm sorry, Rebecca,
No,
my
go ahead.
enthusiasm cut you, but absolutely. And I think more than happy to discuss with you and other people in the hub how we make things a bit more formalized. I think this is, you are correct. I mean, this hub is unique. This is an extraordinary opportunity to actually just teach and share and embed scientists from, virtually or locally to actually be able to grow. So thank you very much for your enthusiasm. I'm sure it's going to be very well received.
Definitely. Natalie.
Thank you very much. Thanks again for your presentation. That's really nice. So I'm Nathalie Mielkarek from the Institut Pasteur of Lille, and I'd like to discuss about the vaccine. You mentioned that Pasteur Paris is in charge of the one pillar of the European Vaccine Hub. And as you know, inside the Pasteur Network, we do have two working groups, one on more the vaccine manufacturing issue, and the other one on research and innovation. And I was wondering how these two groups could interact within the European Vaccine Hub, and if there's a way that we could benefit in a way from this, the fact that you have in charge this pillar.
Absolutely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you in contact with Guillemette and Sotiris for you to see how exactly you can actually connect. So I'm going to make sure after this, if you don't mind, actually maybe to Hisham, you can actually just, or you send me a message, and I will make sure I will put you in contact to be able to enter in the conversation, see actually there is some working group. So absolutely. And, I think, this whole energy has only started to actually fruition recently. So I think it is now time for us to make sure that it's also connected with what you guys are doing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So there was a question, let's see, a question about neglected tropical diseases. So for example, leishmaniasis, are those still among the research objectives at Institut Pasteur?
So it will be hard for me to say that leishmaniasis is not at the center of the universe, because it's how I did my PhD on leishmaniasis. No, of course. Like I said, there is experience in 161 pathogen in Pasteur. It's true that actually leishmaniasis is less represented, at least within the campus, than actually before. But I know that actually the group of Gerard is actually in connection with many of you, because I have seen his presentation recently where he showed that he's creating consortium around the Mediterranean region, but also others. So I think there is ongoing collaborations around those thematic. We may actually hire new scientists on this field if we just have a call on host microbe interaction. Maybe there would be people working on leishmaniasis, but of course, I mean, this is, and you all know, then leishmaniasis is changing, and actually there is new hybrids that are created, actually have very different form of pathology. So this is a disease that not only remain important, but a disease that is evolving. And I think we all need to remain capable to work on it, to survey, to develop potentially new therapeutic approaches, new vaccines. So it's going to probably very much likely stay. At least Gerard is not retiring, as far as I know. He's in connection with many of you, and this is not something we're going to let disappear based on the importance of the disease for human health.
That's great, Yasmin. One quick one, and then I think we'll have to stop, and I'll wrap up and hand back to Hisham. Can you explain a little bit more? There's a question about the AI initiative.
Yes. So you speak about the virtual pathogen. So if you ask me the details, I'm probably not going to be able to do that. But basically, there is a big initiative that exists from many different scientists recently that is called to create virtual cell. So the idea is really to be able to actually reproduce the entire complexity of a biological cell. And this is actually a consortium of scientists that is working from MIT, from actually many different. But nobody is thinking about developing a virtual pathogen. And Pasteur Institute has extraordinary, unique data. unique data on the host-pathogen interaction, that are proprietary data that we have generated. Maybe some of you have unique data. And this allows us to have a knowledge of pathogenic microbe like pretty much nobody else in the world. This AI has only value based on the quality of the data. And this data can allow us to actually build models and actually a virtual cell that could actually now become testable for its function, its evolution, how it's responding to pathogen. So the ambition of it is to facilitate and accelerate drug screening, is to predict evolution of pathogen. Of course, we all know that we're not yet there, and we're going to still have to work and cross-validate with experimental data. But that's one of the future and usage of AI, is how we can actually utilize that for better drug design, for predicting actually how a pressure, an environmental pressure, can trigger an antimicrobial resistance emergence. And that actually has a huge value for all of us when we are in a world in which actually things are going faster and faster, in which actually it's becoming more expensive to do research, how much we can actually also save energy and time by using those tools as a way to actually accelerate the impact of our research. So again, I will be very happy when this project grows to actually make it as one of the presentation and see if some young scientists, I'm saying young because clearly I will not be the one getting there, but some people that want to actually involve themselves, maybe your colleagues from Tunisia that are so good on computational scientists, many others in the network could become partner of this mission.
Great, thanks, Yasmin. Just one other thing, just to tease everybody. So Yasmin mentioned the 2 tracks on the SPARK program, one which is funded by the Pasteur Network, the other by the Institut Pasteur. And other members of the network, if you would also like to fund a SPARK program, we would be more than happy to arrange that for you on a specific subject or anything else like that. We'd like to push that forward, hopefully in the next couple of years. So I'll hand back over to Hisham for the next one. But before I do, thank you, Yasmin. Thank you for taking the time to do this. I think it should show also and demonstrate to everybody both her personal and institutional commitment to this, and it is greatly appreciated. Hisham?
Thank you, Rebecca, and thank you very much, Yasmin, for the seminar. The next seminar will be in March with George Patrinos, director of the Hellenic Pasteur Institutes, and you will receive your invitation very soon. So thank you again for this seminar. We were at some point like 135 people, which is completely really great. So thank you again, and see you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.